Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, or good night, whatever time of dimension that you are in. This is your host, Chris. Welcome to Interstellar Frequency.
Hello to you all that are listening. Hey, I had something that happened that was kind of interesting and pretty cool. I got an email that told me that I'm a high listener podcast or something rather. That was kind of neat. It was stating that I have very high numbers in Saudi Arabia. And I was like, wow, that's awesome. Thank you. Although it's really bizarre on the anchor side that it never tells you anything about anything, but yet when you get an email saying, hey, this is what you're at, and you're like under the top 30 of podcasts, it's like, really? Wow. That's cool. Not famous in the States or anything. That's no big deal. I know. But wow, a whole nother country? Like, that's far out, man. I mean, like, wow. Somebody likes what I'm doing, so thank you. I don't know what to say. I'm speechless on that. That is just too cool. Way too cool. So, hello, Saudi Arabia. I want to say hi. And thank you for listening, and your friends and whoever else you have out there. Thank you. I appreciate it. It's so cool that there are others in the world that are listening to this and seeing that, and it's like, wow, that's so cool. It's reaching the far universes, or at least the Earth universe of the social media platform. One day we'll be shooting this transmission across space, and it's not far from happening. Well, it's kind of already happening, but anyhow, I digress. So this episode that I'm wanting to record is it's going to be a tough one. So bear with me. It's a lot to talk about, and it's a really, really emotional one. And I kind of have to do it. So those of you that are not wanting to hear this, then go ahead and fast forward into another episode or something, or don't listen, either or. This recording really is more for my children, my kids. So later on in life, when they get a little older, they can look at a mistake that I did and maybe learn something from this, and maybe never be able to do a mistake like this ever. Yeah. So I just want to warn you now. It's a little emotional. So this recording is definitely for them and any others out there that want to hear this, and maybe you can learn from it too. So without further ado, we're going to jump right into that. So this episode is about my mother. My mother, which her name, I believe at the time, was Bonnie Lou Garner. I believe that's what it was. I could be wrong. I 100% don't remember. But I do remember a lot of times that they called her and they're like, Bonnie Lou! Which is kind of funny. I always thought, Bonnie Lou! Which, matter of fact, I think there was a song out there that was actually called Bonnie Lou. Bonnie Lou! Bonnie Lou! Yeah. And it always reminded me of my mother when I heard that song back in the day. Some of you may remember that song. Um, and it's really adorable. I've actually named my daughter Bonnie after my mother. And the funniest thing was when she was in her first grade, her teacher actually had her nickname called her Bonnie Boo. Bonnie Boo. Every time she always saw her, she'd always say, "Hi, Bonnie Boo." A little bonbon over here. Oh my God. Yeah. Now, let me just describe you my daughter. And there's so much similarities between her and Grandma Bonnie. Now, my mother, on the other hand, had this furry hair. And I don't remember, I think it was mostly straight hair is what she always had. Straight, long hair. But most of anybody that ever saw her, she had her hair curled up. And because she always put curls in her hair had this whole 70s, 80s style hair do that was like bouncy place all over the place, like Bonnie Ray, and oh my God, the girls from the Bengals. I had to think about that one. Walk like an Egyptian. And some of the other girls out there too. The old style hairdo. And the coolest thing, being my daughter of, born in 2015, and she's got this curly hair, this like reddish golden brown hair. It's mostly red, really. Just like her grandmother. And she has the same type of a hairstyle as my mother. The only thing is, it's natural. And it's so adorable because then she turns around and gets out of the shower and then she swings her head back and forth and it causes this hair to just furl out everywhere. And it's really, really thin hair. So it's just really, similar to the 80s style hairdo. And she actually prefers it that way. And anytime we've ever put her in a ponytail or something like that, and yeah, she'll sit there and she'll go in the ponytail, and then she rips out the ponytail. She won't keep the ponytail. She gets rid of it, and it's just funny as hell. Especially when she's on her way to school, she rips out her hair and then she furls her hair back and forth and gets it all poofed up, and she's ready for school. Now, my mother. This is going to be very interesting. Very hard for me, so I do apologize to talk about this because it's a little emotional, a little bit, just a tad bit. Mom, Bonnie, God, she was such a wonderful woman. Oh my God, was she just adorable? And everybody loved Mom. Everybody loved Bonnie Lou. Everybody loved Bonnie Lou. Oh my God. She made friends everywhere she goes. I mean, she was so much into angels. I am so much like a belief that she was an angel, because of how big her heart was. And it's something is that she would turn around and give everybody whatever they needed and give them clothes or money or whatever. She never was selfish at all that I could ever see when she was a sober person. Now, on the other hand, Mom, as well as many others out there in the world today, and even in back then, we go through these times in our life that become very, very difficult of something that we do or we did, and we can never forgive ourselves for. And it's really hard to do. Mom, on the other hand, she had a drinking problem, Mom really could not let go of her cold duck. Oh my God, her cold duck. I swear to God, that company went out of business after Mom passed away. Oh my God. I'm sorry. Yeah, I don't mean to laugh, but it is pretty funny. For those of you that are hearing this, you're going to laugh about it because you're going to know what I'm talking about. And any of you family members that are listening to my show that never say anything, hello, I love you, I miss you, and I wish you would call me and say, hey, I remember this. You know. Anyhow, Mom always had her cold duck. I don't know what the hell is about cold duck. I don't like the taste. I like champagne, but I don't really like cold duck. Ugh. um, excuse me. And Mom was a partier. You know, she turned around and she would end up partying a lot. She always threw bunkos. She always had bunko at her house, and she got together with all her girlfriends, and they all did bunkos, and all the husbands and wives of my father's, co-workers, they were all girlfriends of each other, and it was a really close-knit family thing. We all of us kids grew up together. And then once we hit high school, we all went our separate ways and did our own thing, and we were just like, yeah, okay, I'm going to go do this. And we just went our separate ways. We never really talked to each other or something. I never understood that. That sucks. A lot of them followed in their wow, if I can get this right. A lot of them followed in their father's footsteps, and they went out and did exactly what their fathers did, which was an iron worker. I could not. I had some severe problems when I was a baby, and I ended up at not even a year old. There was a 20-pound sledgehammer that was very big, or 35-pound. It was a pretty big sledgehammer that my dad had. And I overexerted myself and blew out double hernias at infancy. I could barely walk, and I was all determined to carry this damn thing. And never gave up. And I hurt myself. And from then on, I could never do what my father did. So I had to find another avenue of work. Otherwise, I probably would be an iron worker today. But Mom, on the other hand, we would have these get-togethers and these parties. Or Mom would have these get-togethers and parties, right? Not me. I was just a little baby. I was like 4, 5, 6 or something like that. And oh God, I always loved it when Bunko was around. When Mom was hosting Bunko, oh my God, I would get yelled at all the time. Go to bed! That's the way it was. And I was like, go to your room! Kind of thing. And I would always come out, love up on everybody. It was like, hi! Being the adorable kid thing, and just all the girl adults that were over for Bunko would be like, oh my God, he's so cute. And I'm like, can I have some of that? I would be trying to sneak candy, right? Because mom had these bowls out for Bunko, right? He had different types of bowls of snacks and chips, and it was a party. Man, there was drinking, there were alcohol, and they were all having a party, and all the girls were together, and they were all doing their Bunko thing. And that was so cool. They had all these little snacks and stuff, so I would sneak out and go grab me some snacks and eat it and everything like that. Oh my God, did I get my butt whipped so many times. Get in bed! And every time I tried, I would sneak out for a little bit, and then they would, the mothers and stuff like that would hand me candy. Like, here, go eat this in your room. Shh, don't tell your mom. God, I was so bad. I had my siblings, they were there. They were there on and off, but when I was really, really little, I could barely remember it. It was a hard time as a little kid, to remember the siblings. because of the age group difference that we were. And so one thing about mom was a partier. She loved to party. The only thing is when she partied and drank too much of her alcohol, she became Mr. Hyde. And, she was Dr. Jekyll at first, before the party. And then during the party, she became Mr. Hyde. And for those of you that may not know the reference, she got very, very vicious. And she always would almost start fights and want to kick everybody's ass. And mom was a spunky thing. That's what mom was, man. She was very, very, very spunky. She just, especially when she had a little liquid courage in her ass, she was ready to go. Like, come on. Come to find out, I discovered that we're Scottish. I didn't know this. I'm actually 34% Scottish. So now that makes sense why mom was such a spunk when it came to alcohol. And I am 100% an alcoholic. I don't drink because of it. And I know this. And it runs in the Scottish family. Or at least my Scottish family. And yeah, I'm 34% Scottish. Actually, it may have gone up now. But that's what the whole DNA testing thingy told me. And I was like, wow, that's a trip. But it makes sense why I like my alcohol. And that when I drink, I will drink until there's nothing left. I will drink every single bottle in the house. No matter what is alcohol, I will drink it until it's gone. And then I'll be depressed that it's gone and want more. So they have to hide alcohol from me. So therefore, I just don't drink. I'll have a beer once in a while, but not often because of this. Now, mom, on the other hand, would drink and get super smashed and crazy. And she went through different things in her life, emotional stages of the alcohol, especially later on in life. Back then, during the party times, it wasn't so bad. It was bad, but it just didn't understand the badness to it. And, the driving drunk and stuff like that. She drank a lot. She drank like a fish. And she was always drinking. And then, the one thing I give mom credit for was that my father would get up at 2:30 in the morning every day. And basically, Grandma Bonnie would turn around every morning with Dad, get up with Grandpa, would get up at 2:30 in the morning with him, no matter how much she drank the night before and how messed up she was the night before. She would make him his sandwiches and stuff for work every single day he worked. She always got up with him, no matter how many bad fights that they had. No matter what had happened, he always had his lunch for that day for work. And yeah, he'd leave at 2:30 in the morning and then go to work and then not get home until about 8 o'clock at night. 32 years of that he did. And, oh, wow. It's amazing. And yet, I'm proud of mom that she did that, even though that she had her faults and she did her things. And I can never today really understand why she would drink and why she would turn around and do what she does with the drinking and then get very, very mean. And this one time, I remember, I was a lot older. I was like in teenage years, and, mom and dad had got a divorce. And then 1999, pretty much, 98, 99, mom and dad got separated because dad was trying to get her help. I know this sounds bizarre, right? Okay, but if you remember correctly, this is the late 90s. So help wasn't really there. Not like it is today. And I'm not blaming, okay? So let me just make that clear. I'm not blaming by any stretch of the means that because it wasn't there, that's why she died. No, that's not why. But back then, things were different 30 years ago and 25 years ago, if you want to, be precise. We didn't have the support that we have today. The technology that we have today has helped many, many others out there. And like, for example, I just saw something in the news in an email to me, and I was so proud to see it. It made me believe that there's still hope for our system. I know that sounds bizarre for me to say, but this is my opinion. This is my personal opinion. You can agree with it. You could disagree with it however you would like. It does not matter. This is just my personal opinion, what I witnessed and saw, and I was glad to see. Now, here where I live, we have a little bit of problem with homelessness, and people are trying to make it in the world, and yet there's many arguments, and I'm just going to stop that. Okay, whatever the reason, whatever the rhyme may be, it is what it is, and this is, where it's at. Now, moving forward from here on, I could not believe what I witnessed the county do. The county reached out to them, physically went to their encampments, and helped them get relocated into a location where they can get a home, a place where they can get a roof over their place, over their head. That's something you've never seen. I have never seen, especially in my county. I've never seen it, never witnessed it, because they've been too busy with crime. They don't have time to do outreach. And at this moment in time, not that long ago, they did an outreach for a lot of people and send them on their way to rebuilding their life. And witnessing that and seeing it, not through the news media. I didn't see it through the news media. I actually received it through an email, through a news feed from the county, per se. And I was filled with joy seeing that there's hope for the government system, that they actually reached out to them to say, hey, let's help you. We're going to move your stuff. We're going to help you and send you on your way to getting cleaned up and helping you find a place to live. And so many different programs out there to get off the booze or the drugs or whatever it is that they're on. Hey, we're going to help you. Now, only if that was there like that for my mom back in the day, maybe she'd still be here today. I'm sorry. It's a little emotional. Now, there was a time during the time that my mom and my dad were going through the separation, because there wasn't really much help to get mom help, and we were trying to scare mom into basically stop drinking. The only problem is when they call it a disease, it's a disease for a reason. It's a dis-ease of something. And so Dad and I had thought, because Dad had already been at home for quite some time. Okay, so back in 1997, he got rear-ended by a semi-truck on the freeway and damn near almost killed him. It's a miracle that he's alive. And then he was completely, basically mentally paralyzed and physically paralyzed, where he can no longer do his job as an iron worker. And it changed our life forever. Really changed my life forever. Because of what was happening at home with mom, things weren't so well as, later in the late 90s. And Dad was always working to pay bills and make things happen. So he wasn't seeing and witnessing what was happening at home like I was seeing and witnessing what was happening at home. And there was a lot to it. There was a lot of things I was seeing. And that's neither here nor there as of right now. And it's not that big of a deal. But it's bygones of bygones, and it's happened and happened. And there's nothing else that could be of what it is. It is what it is. It happened. Now, that being said, Dad was home and started witnessing a lot more things that Mom was doing. And realizing, okay, we need to figure out ways to fix Mom. Or we need to figure out a way to help her get help. So we were trying different things, and we even tried an outreach program that was to help her, sobriety, I guess, or something like that. And it was really a very horrible place. We reached through the church at the time and tried to get her help through there. And at this point, Mom and Dad had been divorced. They had gotten a divorce. Dad bought her a place with his money. He bought her a home and paid for her living conditions in a trailer park. And it was a lot cheaper for him and her. And she had this beautiful little home. It was really, really cool. And Mom had her peace with that place. And I made new friends. That was really cool. I mean, it wasn't like the end of the world of Mom and Dad separating and going and living in different locations and no longer under the same roof. But both Dad and I, after witnessing so many things that we had witnessed, we thought it was a better idea. Yes, let's put Mom over here. Because we already had tried to reach out and get help. And we couldn't, me being a little kid at the time, didn't really know what to do. Was barely understanding things. Not like once you're a teenager, you kind of have a little bit more understanding. Back then, I was not. I was still a young child. And so I was still learning things. Later on, when I started becoming a teenager, that's when I discovered some more things about things and understood. And one of the times that I thought was so funny was when Mom and Dad had separated. One of my buddies I had met at the trailer park at the time. He, that's going to be a story in itself. That I'll introduce that one. And that's going to be a good story. That's a good story. Anyways, what had happened was Dad and I and my sister and me, we all went to one of my sister's things. It was like healing global wounds or something. It was a Native American tradition, praying for the planet. And of course, I ended up missing school on that one. And that kind of sucked, but we went. And so I was experiencing a whole nother culture of, beliefs. I'm pretty much a well-rounded individual when it comes to belief system and everything because of so many different cultures that I was experiencing at the time. I had so many different types of understanding of like a religion or something. I mean, I don't know what spirituality or whatever the hell you want to call it. It is what it is. I've just experienced many different things. And Native Americans had a very, very strong belief, especially in the Western Shoshone land, is one air, one water, one Mother Earth. And we all need to take care of it because this is all we got. That was their belief. One air, one earth, one air, one water, one Mother Earth. And we really need to take care of her. Because if we don't, we will no longer be here. Good lesson. Now, at the time, my buddy had, I guess, went with my mother because my mother asked him, "Hey, man, why don't you go with me?" His name was Keith. Sorry, Keith, I'm putting you on blast, but tough shit, okay? Because it doesn't work any other way but putting your ass on blast. So here you are, you're on blast. And she takes him out, says, "Hey, let's go to a round table," or something like that. It was some pizza joint, I think. So they go. She buys him food. She didn't want to be by herself. She didn't want to go by herself, so she asked him to go with her. And, that was cool. So they go and get food. He buys her food and everything, and he went with her. And he was a teenager at the time. And the crazy thing was, Mom got a little plastered. Not like a little. No. Mom got plastered, like a lot. And right there towards the end, she was definitely drinking a little more than normal. And most funniest thing was, she turned around and got so plastered that he had to drive her home. She couldn't drive. She's like, "Are you okay to drive? Have you driven before?" So he's like, "Yeah." It wasn't like he was in the process, I believe, of getting his permit or something like that. He had already pretty much driven many, many times. He'd drive around. I couldn't believe it. He was already driving around the park because his pops helped do the maintenance on the park. So he was already driving, vehicles and stuff at the time. So it wasn't his first rodeo. It might have been his first rodeo driving on the streets, but yeah, he did all right. I think it wasn't his first time doing that. But anyhow, he drove instead of driving all the way to her house and parking the car, which was a stupid mistake on his part. Now looking back as a teenager's side, he drives all the way to his pop's house and his mom's house at the time, and parks the car at their house. Looking back, hindsight 2020, we talked about it and was like, yeah, I probably shouldn't have done that. I should have parked it at your mom's house. And I'm like, yeah, huh? That would have been my thought, not to let her drive back. It's only down the street. She turns around, parks the car, or he parks the car. He's like, "Okay, you're gonna be okay?" And she's like, "Yeah, I'll be fine. Thanks. I'll talk to you later, okay?" All giggly and bubbly and all that. So she gets on the passenger side, crawls around in the driver's side. Well, the neighbor next door is getting ready to go and leave for work or something. So Mom goes to back out at that present moment in time. As he's backing out at that present moment in time, and she hits him in the side quarter panel of the car. She's like, stops the car, puts it in park, starts screaming, "Keith, help me, Keith, help me, Keith, help me." Panic stricken, freaking out, right? The dude comes out of the car. He's a little upset because she just smacked him. He gets out of the car and says, "What the hell did you do to my car?" And he starts blowing up at Mom. That's the wrong thing to do to Mom. Mom don't take kindly to that, especially under liquid courage. She takes off her seatbelt. Keith is watching this. She comes barreling out of the car. "You motherfucker, I'm gonna kick your ass. Some bitch." She's just losing her shit on him. And Keith is watching this like, "Oh my God." And still to this day, both him and I crack up about it. It is one of the most funniest things ever. Ever. Now, I'm going to rewind back a little bit. Further. Well, yeah, no, it's actually forward from there. During this time frame that this all was going on and Mom was that way, I had found, like, Dad wasn't seeing anybody. Mom and Dad were still together. Even though they got a divorce, Mom and Dad were still very much in love. And Dad was with her literally until death do them part. No matter what the piece of paper said that they got a divorce, it was never really a divorce in neither of their hearts. Because when they were going through their divorce in the courtroom, both of them were holding each other's hands. And the judge is like, this is one of the strangest divorces I've ever done, is what he tells them. And the judge looks at them. They're sitting side by side with each other, holding each other's hands. Almost like as if the most inevitable, painful experience is about to take place. And the judge says, never in my life, of my years doing this, have I ever experienced this, and this is my very first one. And I seriously have to ask you guys, the way you are sitting there holding each other's hands while we are going through these proceedings, are you really sure that you want me to divorce you? That's what the judge asked them, because they really loved each other. And so that was hard for them to go through because they really loved each other. But they both looked at each other, looked back at the judge and said, yes, I think it's best this way. And they did it because of the drinking. I think Mom did it more so that way she had peace of mind of her own place. Maybe. I don't know why Mom did it, but Mom agreed to it. They both agreed to it. And that was the decision when I ended up having a lawyer, and I had to decide who I was going to stay with. And at the time, my father wasn't well and wasn't 100% able to make decisions per se, coherent, logical decisions as an adult. Because 1997, he ended up having that accident and was still trying to recover from that mentally, because his head got smashed in and he had a severe brain trauma where he lost all of his short-term memory. Still to this day, he lost his short-term memory. The only way he's able to remember anything is the fact that it has to be put into long-term memory, so he has to repeat it over and over to himself so he can put it into his long-term memory, because his short-term memory would be, if we're talking about this conversation, I've now forgot what we done. Now you go back and say, hey, what were we talking about? He doesn't know. He won't remember, because the part of the brain that got damaged in the trucking accident got smashed. The brain literally got smashed. He has a flat spot on the back of his head. And that was the part where the short-term memory was. So he cannot remember anything short-term. It has to be long-term. And him being 76 years old. No, I'm sorry. Correction. Sorry. That was 74 years old as of right now. Soon to be 75. Oh my God. Yeah, I think 75. So, Mom, she still continued to drink a lot. And it wasn't very easy for us and Dad and I. And I started searching for women, per se. I started searching for women, kind of like the movie, which gave me the idea. Sleepless in Seattle, one of the great movies. I'm sorry. little difficult. So I was a lot like Jonah, where I was kind of trying to find a woman for Dad at the time. And I don't know why, being a little kid, you're sitting here junior high kind of looking for another woman to help fill mom. And I did. I found one. Um, and yeah, she's my godmother. And I love her so much. And she stepped in when I met her in junior high. I had no idea that back then she was even going through some problems of her own in her life. And it's amazing how life happens like that, where you end up finding each other when you're going through your own problems, and you don't even know that all of a sudden now you're put in the presence with someone else that is going through the same exact kind of thing that you're going through. She was kind of on the verge of going through a divorce. Not yet, but it was getting close. Things weren't so well. And she was taking care of one of the kids at school. He had cerebral palsy. No, I'm sorry. She had cerebral palsy. It was a friend of mine. I love you and miss you so much. Both of you. They were kids that were in wheelchairs. And she took care of them. And, they were my friends. And, God, their hearts were just filled with joy and peace. Oh, my God, it was so wonderful. The amount of love and shine that they did. Anyway, she had taken care of one of them. And when I saw her and how she lit up the room and everything, I said, "Can you be my mom?" My straightforward question. I asked her that. That day, I really melted her heart when I asked her that. And then when she asked me about my mom, Bonnie Lou, I kind of clammed up and I couldn't really talk about it too much. It was a sensitive, sore subject. And, because when I was a kid, I was dealing with glass being thrown in the house, and glass fixtures and things, and very violent with mom disagreeing with something or something. So she would chuck some glass across the room and I'd have to hide underneath things, and a lot different, something that I don't want my kids experiencing. So therefore there's no drinking or drugs or anything in my house, because I don't want them to experience that life that I went through when I was a kid. And I'm not saying my life was very, very bad or anything like that, because that would be ignorant to say. But I know that there are others out there that have gone through something similar, or worse, or not so worse, that barely had anything bad, but in their world it was a catastrophe. To each his own. That's what they say. When I was a kid going through that, I was on a little bit of a suicidal thing happening as a young kid with my mother, because I thought I was the cause of the problem. So I started to try to hurt myself as a kid, and was a little suicidal as a kid. Who would have ever thought? You don't really know what's happening behind closed doors at home, and till evidence later you find out. Now, that being said, with today's society, those of you that are here in the States, I don't know about the rest of the world, if you are having problems at home, whatever that problem may be, if there is feeling of some sort that you have of suicide, please, please don't. Nothing ever comes good of it, especially for those that love you. Because even though that you think you're alone, you're really not. And there are those out there that love you very much. I want you to call the number. It's a suicide prevention hotline. Call 800-273-8255. Again, that number is 800-273-8255. Please, please call that number if you ever feel like you are wanting to take your own life. Because honestly, no matter what time of dimension that you're in, there is still much work for you to do. Whether it's helping that other person that had no one else to, whether it is doing something that you are very, very important task that you have to do. Here I am talking about this on my show, and I don't know why, but this is where we're at. Call that number. Please, please don't ever do it. There is still so much work to do on this planet, and we've got a lot of things that we got to do and work together to make this a better place. There's a great saying in one of those beautiful books that say, on earth as it is in heaven. I still believe that that is still possible, because more and more every day I start to see it unfolding. It doesn't seem like it's all that coming to an end like everybody believes. I'm seeing the good of things happening where it is on earth as it is in heaven. If that makes any sense to you. Now, there was times I was doing some things and my father had caught me, so he stopped me from doing that. He got very upset with me and he couldn't figure out why. And then he started figuring out more and more and started looking into more into my life of what's going on and why is things happening the way they were, why I wasn't able to read and write, why I wasn't able to understand like other kids. A lot of things was happening in my life back in elementary school. And that's when he discovered a lot of things about my mom. So, fast forwarding, I had done something and I already hit the teenage years of like, okay, mom, whatever. You get told to do something and you're like, whatever, mom. As my brother says, oh, your balls just dropped. Don't worry about it. Sorry. Hey, I'm just quoting. Give me a break. But that's, I guess something that they call hitting puberty. Now, later on, I had asked my godmother, I said, would you be my mom? And she's like, oh. So then she kind of started, checking things out. And mom and dad were not so doing well together. And then she had went through her problems and stuff like that. And she ended up getting divorced and then moved out. And yeah, so her life was going through a tormental time at the same time mine was. The only problem is What had happened right there towards the end of my mom's life, she was drugged by an individual that I believe this to be the truth. And if anybody else has any other types of disagreement with me, kiss my ass. This is what I witnessed, and this is what I saw, and this is my opinion. What had happened was that time that mom had stopped drinking for almost on 3 weeks at this point. And this was a big improvement. It was a blessing. It was really a blessing. And she went back to her house, and it was a real cold winter kind of thing, right around the same time as we are right now, in the coldness of the high desert where I live. And she was on her way from our house. She went back over to her house to go pick up some clothes to spend the night at our house. And we were like, yeah, mom and dad we would do that periodically. We would go stay at her house, then she'd come over and stay at our house. We never really were separated as a family. We were together, but not together. It was weird arrangements. Until she started drinking, and it was like, bye, Anyhow, she had went back, stopped by McDonald's to get some food, and there was this lady outside with her baby. It was very, very cold, and she was using this baby as a catch, hook, line, and sinker to prey on other people. And never mind her reasoning behind it. It is what it is. It's in the past. It happened. It is what it is. And this lady was not too good of an individual at the time and was going through problems herself and stuck on possibly drugs or whatever it is that she was doing. Mom took her back to her place because it was cold and she didn't know where else to take her. So being the kindness person that she is, this is what she did. She took her back to her place. Then she calls Dad and says, hey, this lady, I took her to my house because she has a little baby and I don't know what to do with her. And I want to help her, but I'm kind of afraid, I don't want to let her baby die and da-da-da-da. Karma's a bitch, that's all I gotta say. And I'm more likely this woman received her karma from this. That's all I have to say about that one. What had happened was, when she turned around and called Dad, I told Dad, something's wrong. Don't let that woman come to our house. No. And I had this strong intuition hitting me, telling Dad to tell her, no, don't let her come to our house. Stay there with her. Let her stay with Mom. Let's stay over there. I was very worried about security and safety, and I had this strong tuition about it. Turns out my tuition was right. What had happened was that this lady started to drug my mother, whatever it may be, and made my mother sick. She had already liver disease at the point, I think, at that time. And then her kidneys failed. And she had cirrhosis of the liver. They never did do an autopsy of the cause of death, which is something I think I wish they would have done. I'd have to research it to this day, but whatever it may be, it is what it is. I feel something was very wrong with this woman because we got a phone call from Mom's friend that lived at the trailer park and said, hey, something's wrong with her. Bonnie is asking for help. She needs help. This woman is stealing her car and driving away with it and da-da-da-da. So there was a lot more to the story behind what happened to Mom. It wasn't just her drinking herself to death. It was kind of like somebody helping her meet her demise a lot faster. And that's what happened. So we went and rescued Mom after when Mom kind of sobered up and called us. The lady was gone with her car. We turned around and ends up getting mom back to the house. She was very, very sick, and she was very, very yellow at the time. It was already pretty much too late. And mind you, mom had been in and out of the hospital, and the doctor's telling her, "You need to stop drinking. You can't do this no more. This is very bad for you, Bonnie. You're almost at the point of no return." And I'm sorry about this. It's a very hard story to tell, so it's a little difficult. What I had lived through at that moment in time when we picked her up, I was already friends with my godmother at school. I already had her phone number, and she said, "Call me anytime something's wrong. Call me." Okay. At that moment in time, I was pretty upset with mom because this wasn't her first trip to the hospital. I just thought it was another trip. I was a teenager at the time. And what had happened was I turned around and said to her something that I could never regret. I could never, that I regret to this day, that ever came out of my mouth as a child, a young adolescent teenager. I said she was on her way to the hospital, leaving, because her brother was coming to pick her up. And I said, "I fucking hate you, Mom." I said those words. Not goodbye, I love you. No, I fucking hate you. And then she went and died. That's something that I could never take back. Although I want to. It's taken me 30 years to get over that. I'm sorry. This is difficult, like I said. But there's a strong point here. What? It's taken me a long time to understand things. And what I did understand from my godmother, I had called her that night, that afternoon, or whatever it was, that mom was going to the hospital to die. And I said, "Hey, I need you. Please, would you come here? Something's wrong with mom." And Dad has to take her down the hill or something, take her to the hospital. I don't know what it was. He was doing something, and I needed you. Can you please come? She did. She showed up to the door. At the moment that Karen, I'm sorry to say her name, but this is how it is. Karen, you showed up, and mom was on her way out. And what had happened at that moment was mom looked at her, and mom already knew about her because I was very fond of her in school, and I talked to mom about her, so mom knew who this woman was. At one point in time, mom thought that she was after her man. That was mom. She thought that something was up with that. And then come to find out that wasn't the truth. She discovered that no, it was actually more about me than it was her old man. And during the time that they met each other, and it was the first time that they ever met, each other, I believe. I could be wrong. Don't hold me to it. But I think this was the first time that they ever met. Mom was on her way out the door of my dad's house. And at that moment, Karen was on her way in the door, and they met each other at the door threshold of the house. And I didn't know this until years and years later. And I discovered this. Years later, mind you. Damn near almost 20 years later. I find out that Mom says to her, Karen, please, please, please take care of my boy. Be there for him. Because I cannot. Yeah. It's a little emotional. I apologize. But once this is said and done, it's done. So therefore, it'll be a lot more easier to talk about Mom. So I guess this is mostly a story for my children. This is why I said what I said. Hate is a very strong word, and you should never say, I hate you or anyone else, because it is truly not a good word to say. I dislike that, I dislike this, but I truly hate something is never good. That's what I hope my children will understand. It's never been a good word for me. And it's taken me many, many years to forgive myself for saying what I said to my mother. That I hate you. I fucking hate you. And then turn around, almost 35 years old, 34 years old, I finally came to forgive myself for my mom. For saying that to my mother. Something that I could not take back. Because she was already gone. Later on, I am told by Karen that Mom told her to watch over me, be there for her, help me in life through her to get better in my life. And oh my God, I love both of you so very much. Mima and Grandma Bonnie. Both of you. Because I wouldn't be where I'm at today if it wasn't for the both of you. The moral of this story of mine to my children, all four of you. If there's ever a time that you feel that I have ever done you wrong, or Mom has ever done you wrong, please tell us. Come forward and tell us about it if we've messed up. Because being a parent, you really don't know what you're doing. You're winging it all along the way. And you're only trying to understand, as a parent, to be only a better one than your previous parents were. And you strive for that. So, if you ever find yourself in that situation where life is very, very hard, and it's tumbling down on you, and if you just disappeared and ended all, and you won't be in pain no more, just know that you will cause many more pain than you could ever imagine to everyone else that loves you. And there are others out there, even though that you may not talk to them, and you may not be able to speak with them on a daily basis. They love you, and they're always thinking about you. So do not ever feel that you need to just end it. Because if that was true, guess what? You're not meant to be here in the first place, and you would have never existed if you weren't meant to be here. So, why not hang in there a little longer and try to figure out why you were here? Why were you here in the first place? To help someone else or do something that was important, or what? Because there is some reason why we all are here. It may not be what we understand, and we will probably never understand it, but we can only ever hope to understand why we are here. And I think maybe I've kind of started to understand why I'm here. Maybe it could be because I need to get these so-called podcasts out, or whatever it may be. I don't quite know. Or just help others. But if you ever feel like you're in that time that you want to just let go and never do this no more, please call that 1-800 number. 1-800-273-8255. 800-273-8255. Please call them. Back long ago, I didn't have this number. I couldn't call this number. I didn't even know this number existed. But I want to do a huge shout out to NICKELBACK. I know that sounds bizarre, but guess what? Lullaby, the song Lullaby from the Here and Now album, is what saved my life. It truly did, because I was down that road once. And a lot of times, most of every one of us has been there. Thank you, NICKELBACK, for what you have done. You saved my life. Even though that you couldn't get me on the phone. That's all I have for you. Until next time.
This is Interstellar Frequency. End of transmission.